Welcome back to Steffy Fans Channel. Today we will learn about the explosive Thanksgiving shake-up that leaves Brooke alone, pushes Ridge into an awkward family dinner, and throws Deacon, Sheila, and some surprising guests into the most unlikely holiday gathering ever, Ridge's Thanksgiving snub. This Thanksgiving, Ridge Forrester makes a decision that speaks louder than any argument. He will not be spending the holiday with Brooke Logan. Instead of appearing at Brooke's side, Ridge chooses to attend Steffy Forrester and John Finnegan's celebration at the Cliff House, creating a very visible divide in his personal life. For a man who has spent years bouncing between Brooke and Taylor, this choice signals where his emotional energy is focused right now, even if he refuses to put it into words. Brooke, who has built countless holidays around Ridge, will suddenly find herself facing a quiet house and some very loud memories. This is not just a scheduling choice, it is a public signal to the entire family that their relationship is fractured enough that they cannot even fake a united front on a major holiday. Ridge may tell himself he is doing what is best for the children and grandchildren, but the emotional fallout for Brooke will be deep, because Thanksgiving has often been the time when they tried to reset and reconnect. Deacon and Sheila's strange new family. Across town, another table is being set, and this one might be the most controversial in Los Angeles. Deacon Sharp and Sheila are hosting their own Thanksgiving gathering at Il Giardino. After being judged and rejected by most of the Forrester and Logan clans, Deacon and Sheila have chosen to build their own little island of misfits, where the rules are looser and second chances are handed out with the breadsticks. For Deacon, who has always craved respectability but rarely achieved it, this holiday is both a consolation prize and a declaration of independence. Sheila, of course, revels in any situation where she can present herself as reformed and misunderstood. Sitting at the head of a Thanksgiving table, holding Deacon's hand, and playing hostess at a respected restaurant allows her to pretend she is simply a devoted partner, not the woman whose history terrifies half the town. This dinner gives her the opportunity to rewrite her story in front of carefully chosen guests, and every smile and polite conversation is another brick in the image she is trying to rebuild. Daphne, Rose, and Carter, unexpected guests. To make the evening even more intriguing, Deacon and Sheila invite Il Giardino's rising songbird, Daphne Rose, and her main squeeze, Carter Walden, to join their Thanksgiving feast. Daphne has become a warm, musical presence at the restaurant, and her budding romance with Carter adds a softer, romantic energy to the night. By bringing them into the fold, Deacon is trying to prove that he and Sheila can sit at the same table as respectable people and share a normal holiday. For Carter, accepting this invitation is a bold move, especially considering his recent violent history with Deacon. He could have easily declined and spent Thanksgiving in a safer, more predictable setting, but instead he shows up, signaling that he is at least willing to try to put the past behind him. Daphne's presence likely helps soften the tension, because her optimism and musical charm make it harder for old grudges to dominate the evening. The shadow of the Deacon and Carter brawl. The last time Deacon and Carter shared intense screen time, it ended in a violent showdown, not a toast. Back in April, Deacon confronted Carter at Forrester Creations over what he saw as a betrayal of his daughter, and words quickly escalated into fists. That fight was not just about a disagreement, it was about pride, fatherly anger, and the feeling that yet another Forrester insider was treating Deacon like he would never be good enough. Now, sitting across a Thanksgiving table from the same man he once attacked, Deacon is forced to confront what kind of person he wants to be moving forward. The night becomes an unofficial test of whether he can truly evolve into a man of peace, rather than the hot-headed troublemaker people expect. Carter, who usually prides himself on being calm and ethical, must decide whether forgiveness is possible when the person asking for it is still romantically linked to someone as dangerous as Sheila. Hope and Duck's painful absence. One of the loudest statements at Il Giardino's Thanksgiving table comes from the people who are not there, Hope Logan and Dick Sharp will be absent from Deacon's celebration. Their decision not to attend is no surprise, because they have repeatedly told their father how disappointed they are in his choice to reunite with Sheila. For Hope especially, supporting Deacon has always been a delicate balancing act, but aligning herself with Sheila is a line she refuses to cross. Their absence turns what could have been a joyful family gathering into a bittersweet reminder of what Deacon has sacrificed to stand by Sheila's side. Every time he looks around the table, he will see the guests he has instead of the daughter and loved ones he desperately wanted there. This emotional cost adds a layer of tension beneath the surface smiles, because Deacon knows that, for all his bravado, his romantic choice has cost him real connection with his own blood. An uneasy peace at Il Giardino. Despite the baggage and missing faces, the night at Il Giardino turns into a surprisingly enjoyable Thanksgiving for Deacon, Sheila, Carter, and Daphne. Once the first round of awkward greetings and careful small talk passes, the group settles into a tentative rhythm, sharing food, stories, and guarded laughs. Deacon works overtime to keep the mood light, acting as a host who is determined to prove that his life with Sheila can be stable and drama-free for at least one meal. Sheila, aware of how fragile this new acceptance is, likely takes extra care to appear gracious, calm, and even vulnerable. Every gentle gesture, every warm word directed at Daphne or Carter becomes part of her ongoing campaign to show that she can exist in polite society. Meanwhile, Carter carefully monitors the vibe, choosing his words wisely, not because he fully trusts Sheila, but because he is trying to honor the holiday and support Daphne's positive outlook. Tension at the Cliff House. While Il Giardino navigates its own brand of uneasy harmony, the Cliff House faces a different kind of tension. Ridge will be seated at Steffy and Finn's Thanksgiving celebration, and right beside him will be Taylor Hayes, the woman whose heart he recently broke by ending their engagement. Sharing a table after such a painful split forces both of them to perform emotional gymnastics, smiling for the sake of the family while quietly managing unresolved grief and disappointment. Steffy, who deeply loves both of her parents, is caught between gratitude and discomfort. On one hand, she is thrilled that Ridge and Taylor are physically present for her and the children, maintaining the image of a united family. On the other hand, she cannot ignore how raw her mother's emotions still are, and she knows every shared glance between Ridge and Taylor carries the weight of what might have been. Taylor's heartbreak on display. For Taylor, this Thanksgiving is especially painful because it throws her greatest recent heartbreak into a brightly lit family setting. Not long ago, she was planning a future with Ridge, only to watch that future crumble when he ended their engagement and walked away from their dream. Now she must sit beside him, pass the turkey, and pretend that their relationship is nothing more than a mature friendship. Her composure at the table will be an act of strength, but also a protective mask. Taylor understands that breaking down in front of Hayes and Kelly would only make the situation harder for everyone. Still, every laugh she forces, every polite word she offers Ridge, will be colored by fresh hurt, and viewers will see how hard she is working not to let her heartbreak overshadow the holiday for her grandchildren. Steffy's gratitude and worry. Despite this emotional minefield, Steffy finds genuine joy in having both of her parents under the same roof for Thanksgiving. The Cliff House has always been her sanctuary, and seeing Ridge and Taylor at her table makes the holiday feel complete, at least on the surface. For Steffy, these moments are precious, because she knows that her family's history is full of breakups, reconciliations, and sudden departures. At the same time, she is keenly aware of the emotional undercurrents flowing around the table. Steffy likely watches her parents closely, hoping their interactions remain civil and warm enough to keep the tension from spilling over. Her priority is creating a happy memory for Hayes and Kelly, so she will do everything she can through jokes, conversation, and carefully chosen topics to keep the focus on love, food, and togetherness rather than lingering heartache. Hayes and Kelly brighten the day. Adding light and energy to the Cliff House celebration are the youngest family members, Hayes Finnegan and Kelly Spencer. Their excitement about the food, the decorations, and simply having so many loved ones in one place brings a natural warmth to the gathering. Children have a way of cutting through adult drama, and their laughter provides a much-needed distraction from the emotional tension between Ridge and Taylor. Watching the kids enjoy the day reminds everyone why these complicated adults keep trying, even when relationships fall apart. For Ridge, seeing Hayes and Kelly celebrate may reinforce his determination to stay present as a father and grandfather, even if his romantic life remains messy. For Taylor, their smiles and hugs provide comfort and a sense of purpose, grounding her in the role of loving mother and grandmother rather than a woman defined by romantic loss. Brooke's lonely Thanksgiving question. As all of this plays out, one big question hangs over the holiday. Who will Brooke spend Thanksgiving with now that Ridge has chosen the Cliff House over her home? The absence of her longtime love on such a meaningful day forces Brooke to confront just how far apart they truly are at this moment. Whether she ends up with a small gathering, a quiet dinner, or a surprise visit from friends or family, the day will feel very different without Ridge at her side. This lonely holiday could become a turning point for Brooke. Without Ridge to lean on, she may begin to reassess what she wants from her future and whether waiting for him is still worth the emotional cost. The contrast between Ridge's presence at Steffy's, Deacon's found family dinner at Il Giardino, and Brooke's uncertain plan sets the stage for new choices, new alliances, and new emotional battles in the weeks to come. Will the gratitude tradition survive? One final mystery lingers around Steffy's holiday table. Will her family continue their tradition of going around the table and sharing what each person is thankful for? On the surface, it is a sweet, harmless ritual, but this year, it could expose some raw truths. Imagine Ridge saying he is thankful for family while sitting beside the woman whose heart he shattered, or Taylor expressing gratitude for honesty and clarity while still processing her pain. If they choose to honor the tradition, every answer will carry double meaning. Steffy might focus on her children and parents, determined to highlight the unity she is trying to preserve. Ridge and Taylor will have to carefully navigate their words, saying enough to sound sincere without opening the door to another round of heartbreak at the table. Whether they skip the ritual or embrace it, this Thanksgiving will leave emotional ripples far beyond the final slice of pie. Next, we will dive deep into Will Spencer Jr.'s heartbreaking reaction to Luna Nozawa's miscarriage, her shocking death, and how this tragedy could blow up his relationship with Electra Forrester. Luna's confession before the crash. In the final moments before Luna's horrific accident on the highway, she tracked down Will Spencer Jr. with a desperate urgency that stunned him. This was not the calculating, dangerous woman the world had labeled a serial killer, but a frightened, vulnerable, expectant mother carrying his child. When Luna finally confronted Will, she dropped a bombshell that changed everything in an instant. She was no longer pregnant, and she had suffered a miscarriage while locked up behind bars. That confession hit Will like a tidal wave, cutting through all the fear, anger, and confusion surrounding their twisted connection. In that moment, Luna was not his father's enemy or a criminal statistic. She was the woman who had carried his baby and then tragically lost it in a cold, unforgiving prison cell. Seconds later, before either of them could process the weight of that revelation, Luna's life came to a brutal end when she was struck by a car on the highway, leaving Will with a lifetime of unanswered questions. Will's unexpected grief. What shocked viewers most was Will's face and reaction after learning about the miscarriage. Instead of relief, his expression showed genuine sorrow and devastation. Many expected him to feel unburdened, even secretly grateful, that he was no longer tied to a woman branded as a serial killer by a child. Instead, Will's pain revealed a side of him that few had seen, a young man who had quietly begun to accept the idea of fatherhood and, on some level, had started to imagine a future with his child. The loss of the baby was like a punch straight to his soul, a blow that went beyond shock or fear of scandal. Despite everything, Will had moved past the horror of knowing he'd impregnated a notorious criminal and had started to embrace the possibility of becoming a dad, perhaps even hoping that a child could bring something pure out of a chaotic situation. Now, with both the baby gone and Luna dead, Will is left grieving not just what was lost, but what might have been a life, a bond, and a chance at redemption for both of them. A grief that isolates Will. Will's grief is complicated, layered with guilt, confusion, and a surprising amount of empathy for Luna. He cannot easily talk about his pain, because admitting how much he cared about the baby and even about Luna as the mother of his child forces him to confront feelings that contradict the narrative everyone else believes. On paper, he should be relieved that the problem is gone, but emotionally, he feels like a father who has lost his first child before ever holding them. This emotional conflict is likely to isolate him from those around him, especially people who saw Luna as nothing more than a monster. If Will tries to express his grief openly, he risks being judged, misunderstood, or told that he is better off. Instead of comfort, he may feel dismissed, which could push him further into emotional turmoil and resentment toward anyone who seems indifferent to the baby's death. Electra's cold reaction. While Will sinks into mourning, Electra Forrester stands on the opposite end of the emotional spectrum, and that contrast may be what destroys their relationship. Rather than feeling compassion for Will's loss, Electra is more likely to view Luna's death as a victory, a brutal but convenient end to her rival. In her mind, the problem has been erased, the dangerous woman is gone, and the baby that could tie Will to Luna forever no longer exists. Electra's instinct will likely be to celebrate privately, or at least to silently breathe a sigh of relief, instead of offering the genuine empathy Will desperately needs. Her inability or unwillingness to recognize that Will is mourning his unborn child, not pining for a murderous ex, will create a massive emotional gap between them. Every smile, every dismissive comment about Luna, and every attempt to move on too quickly could feel like a slap in the face to Will's grief. A wedge driven between Will and Electra. Instead of pulling Will and Electra closer together, this tragedy is poised to drive a deep wedge between them. For Will, the baby represented a responsibility he had started to own and a life he had unconsciously begun to love, even if he never said it out loud. For Electra, the baby and Luna were threats to her relationship, to her security, and to her place in the Spencer orbit. Now that the baby is gone, Electra might expect Will to bounce back quickly, as if a weight has been lifted. But the more she treats this loss like a bullet dodged, the more Will may feel that she is trivializing his pain. That emotional disconnect can turn into resentment, and resentment, if not addressed, can rot a relationship from the inside until there is nothing left but blame and bitterness. The question of blame. Underneath all the sorrow lies a dangerous question: who, if anyone, is responsible for Luna's miscarriage? If the Spencer family wants to get technical, Luna likely would not have lost the baby if she had not been thrown in prison while pregnant. Luna herself suffered the physical consequences, but the circumstances that put her behind bars did not appear out of thin air. Electra secretly went behind the Spencers' backs and called the police, ensuring that pregnant Luna was arrested and dragged off to jail. That choice, made out of fear, jealousy, or a desire to protect her future with Will, set off a chain reaction that ended with a miscarriage and a gruesome death. Knowing this, Will may not be able to ignore the possibility that his own girlfriend played a direct role in the loss of his child. Will's growing resentment toward Electra. If Will starts to connect the dots, his feelings toward Electra could darken quickly. When grief mixes with anger, it often looks for a target, and Electra's actions make her an obvious focal point. He may begin to replay every decision she made, every warning she gave, and every moment she pushed for Luna to be removed from their lives. Even if Electra insists she did not intend for Luna to miscarry, intent may not matter to a grieving father. In Will's mind, if Luna was not thrown into a harsh environment while pregnant, their baby might still be alive. That thought alone is powerful enough to poison trust, and once trust is poisoned, it is nearly impossible to restore without deep remorse and accountability. Could this destroy their relationship? The combination of grief, guilt, and blame could easily become too much for Will and Electra's relationship to handle. On one side is a man mourning a child he will never meet, struggling to process the fragile, complicated connection he had with the child's mother. On the other side is a woman who may feel she did what she had to do, yet appears cold and even celebratory in the face of another woman's death. If Electra continues to act as if Luna's demise is a blessing, Will may begin to see her not as his support system, but as the person who helped push his baby and its mother toward tragedy. That perception will be extremely difficult to overcome, especially if Electra refuses to acknowledge his pain or admit that her actions had devastating consequences. What was once a romance built on passion and ambition could crumble under the weight of unspoken grief and unresolved blame. Is Electra too cold-hearted? Electra's behavior raises a core moral question. Is she simply protecting her future, or is she revealing a chilling lack of compassion? Her focus on her rivalry with Luna, rather than the loss of an innocent child, suggests a mindset where winning matters more than humanity. Viewers may begin to see Electra not just as a schemer, but as someone whose emotional detachment crosses into disturbing territory. For Will, that realization could be terrifying. The more he sees Electra celebrate or minimize Luna's death, the harder it will be for him to imagine building a family with someone who cannot recognize the value of a life that was never given a chance. In the long run, that cold-heartedness might not only cost her Will's love, but also her standing with the powerful Spencer family. What comes next for Will and Electra? The fallout from Luna's miscarriage and death is far from over, and the emotional aftershocks will likely shape Will's future. This tragedy could force him to grow up quickly, confront his own choices, and decide what kind of man and potential father he wants to be. Whether he walks away from Electra, forgives her, or spirals further into guilt and anger will determine the next chapter of his life. As for Electra, this is a turning point. She can either continue down a path of jealousy and cold calculation, or face the consequences of her actions and show real remorse. If she fails to understand the depth of Will's grief, she may lose him forever and find herself on the wrong side of both love and loyalty. In the end, the real question is not just whether Luna's miscarriage and death will cause problems for Will and Electra, but whether their relationship can survive such a dark, heartbreaking test at all.